Okay. Can everybody hear me okay? Good. Okay. So tonight's sutta is called the Vipallasa Sutta. And we've called this Vipallasa Sutta. There's a number of translations for the Pali word Vipallasa. It's seen translated as distortions or fermentations or a number of other things. But what it really boils down to, and what John has really extracted the essence of it, is fabrications. So we're going to talk tonight about fabrications, and we're going to talk tonight about the Vipallasa Sutta. So fundamental to the Buddhist notion of ignorance or delusion are the Vipallasas, also referred to as fabrications. The Vipallasa Sutta is a heartwood teaching, a teaching we can take true refuge in. We will look at how the themes of 3 marks of existence, 4 noble truths, 5 clinging aggregates, and dependent origination are woven through this sutta, and how this teaching is applied in Dhamma practice. So let's begin. Friends, there are these 4 fabrications of perceptions, of the mind, of views. These 4 fabrications are confusing permanence with regard to impermanence, confusing pleasant with regard to what is stressful, confusing or assuming self with regard to not self, confusing attractive with regard to unattractive. These are the 4 fabrications of perception, of the mind, of views. So earlier, John, Jen, and Kevin mentioned how dangerous fabrications are to the practitioner, as they can easily lead one on ignoble searches. We've mentioned that several times. Taking what is impermanent, anicca, as permanent, what is inherently stressful, dukkha, as a source of satisfaction, what is without a self, anatta, to constitute a self, and seeing the unattractive, asubha, as attractive, describes a mind rooted in ignorance of 4 noble truths and highlights the 3 marks of existence. I'm going to continue the Buddha's words. There are 4 qualities of mind that are not fabricated. Knowing impermanence as impermanence, knowing stress as stress, knowing not self as not self, knowing what is unattractive as unattractive. These are the 4 qualities of mind that are free of fabrication. So we're just going to take this section apart a little bit and look at it, particularly in something that has been a theme through both Kevin and John and Jen's teachings, unbinding, and particularly sensitive to unbinding. So we'll start with the first one, knowing impermanence as impermanence. So stress is occurring within impermanence. We know this. Stress is impermanent. It arises and passes away on its own. So when we understand, when we know, when we are sensitive to unbinding in our knowing that impermanence is impermanence, there is unbinding from the stress of impermanence. Knowing stress as stress. Again, these are the 4 qualities of mind that are not fabricated. Knowing stress as stress. We know that life in the phenomenal world is subject to stress. We know our contribution to that stress causes our individual suffering. This is the first noble truth. When we understand stress, when we understand the First Noble Truth, there is unbinding from stress. These first two, knowing impermanence as impermanence, knowing stress as stress, this is living life as life occurs. Life is occurring in a field of impermanence. We know that there is stress inherent in life. So these two, knowing impermanence as impermanence, knowing stress as stress, this is living life as life occurs. We accept this view, right view, and thus are unbound from wrong views. So continue. Knowing not self as not self. This means we're aware of our I-making, clinging to fabrications or wrong views of self. And so, Sangha, what do we do when we become aware of this, when we become aware of fabrications, wrong views of self, our I-making? What do we do? Anybody? We come back to the sensation of breathing in the body. So, again, knowing not self is not self. This means we're aware of our I-making. We're aware of clinging to fabrications or wrong views of self. So when we know what is unattractive as unattractive, we know this through right view. We know this through right view in the virtuous factors of the Eightfold Path. We see what is unattractive in our thoughts, words, and actions as unattractive, and we abandon them. Again, with refined mindfulness of the Eightfold Path, we are sensitive to unbinding. We abandon what is unattractive. These are the four qualities of mind that are free of fabrication. These are the qualities of mind of one who has taken true refuge. So we'll continue. The Buddha's words. Perceptions, the mind, and views are fabricated when perceiving permanence in impermanence, when perceiving pleasure in what is stressful, when perceiving self in what is not self, when perceiving attractiveness in the unattractive. So again, let's look at this in terms of Vipallasas. So perceptions, the mind, and views are fabricated. So what are fabrications of perception, or they, as they call in Pali, sana Vipallasa? So we misperceive the information coming into us through our sense gates. That's fabrications of perception. Fabrications of the mind. This is chitta Vipallasa. So here, fabrications of the mind is a mind rooted in ignorance can only become further ignorant. If we're ignorant of what's occurring, if we're ignorant of Four Noble Truths, then we cannot help but give birth to another moment rooted in ignorance. So, fabrications of view, ditti Vipallasa. These are wrong views of self, or clinging to fabrications. So let's examine these again in the theme of five clinging aggregates. So when perceiving self and what is not self, if we look at it through five aggregates, one assumes form to be the self, or the self-possessing form. Feelings to be the self, or the self-possessing feelings. One assumes the self-possessing perception. One assumes fabrications to be the self. One assumes the self-possessing consciousness. Here we see, in perceiving self and what is not self, we see five clinging aggregates. So through refined mindfulness developed in jhana meditation and the practice of the Eightfold Path, with wise discernment, we see five clinging aggregates as impermanent. We see five clinging aggregates as stressful. We see five clinging aggregates as not self. We see fabrications as fabricated. So this is one section to unpack, looking at this very short sutta in this way. The Buddha continues. These beings are destroyed by wrong view. These beings have lost their minds. These beings are bound to the yoke of ignorance. We've heard that before. These beings will find no rest, wandering aimlessly from birth to death. So here, if we look at this, these beings are bound to the yoke of ignorance. These beings will find no rest, wandering aimlessly from birth to death. So these beings are bound to the yoke of ignorance in the service of me, in the service of me, the identity that is fabricated. Wandering aimlessly from birth to death, this is consciousness rooted in ignorance of Four Noble Truths, which is this habitual feedback loop of self-centered conditioned thinking that has us wandering through samsara from birth to death, no rest, constantly craving for and clinging to impermanent phenomena, and thinking of it as me. This is me. Buddha continues, however, when awakened ones are present in the world, they bring light into the world. They teach the Dhamma that brings an end to stress. The wise will listen and regain their senses. They will clearly know impermanence as impermanence, stress as stress, not self as not self, unattractive as unattractive. Having developed right view, they abandon ignorance and bring to cessation all confusion, all deluded thinking, all stress and suffering. That's the end of the sutta. But I wanted to go back a little bit and unpack some of this. So here, when awakened ones are present in the world, they bring light into the world. They teach the Dhamma that brings an end to stress. The wise will listen and regain their senses. So here, this is implying that the wise had lost their senses, or that the senses, the sixth sense base, has been co-opted by anatta, which distorts perception and feeling. This is experienced in the mind and body as stress and disturbance. When we have regained our senses, no longer clinging, identity is a reference point occurring within impermanence, just 6 properties. So Kevin had referenced the Dhatuvabhanga Sutta, which goes in depth on what a human being is. And it is just these 6 properties. We can talk about that, or you can look that up on the website to learn more about that. But this is an important point, that when the senses are co-opted by anatta, we feel stress. What comes through our senses is stressful and creates disturbance in our body and mind. So again, when we notice that we become distracted in our thoughts, when we notice on our cushions we've become distracted with feelings, when we notice out in the world we've become distracted with thoughts, what do? Take a breath, come back to the sensation of breathing in the body. So here we can look at this again also through dependent origination. So when awakened ones are present in the world, the wise will listen and regain their senses. We'll start by sort of unpacking dependent origination and tying it into this. So from ignorance as a requisite condition comes fabrications. Fabrications arise moment by moment in anatta's strategy to maintain delusion through self-identification with thoughts. Consciousness bound to becoming further ignorant through the story of I. So this self-identification with thoughts is consciousness rooted in ignorance. This self-identification with thoughts is what populates the story of I. Name and form are bodily fabrications, verbal fabrications, and mental fabrications. From name and form comes the sixth sense base. Through our 5 physical senses and intellect comes contact. Contact is where we begin to practice cessation, where we begin the practice of the Eightfold Path. From contact comes feeling, subjective feeling, the personal experience of suffering, you name it. From feeling comes clinging, fabricated views in order to maintain ignorance. What is clinging? Fabricated views in order to maintain ignorance. From clinging and maintaining is becoming. This is that aimlessly wandering from birth to death, the habitual feedback loop that we heard John mention in the Nagara Sutta. So when awakened ones are present in the world, they bring light into the world. They teach the Dhamma that brings an end to stress. This is what we take true refuge in: the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. So again, I'll read up the last part of this sutta again. They will clearly know impermanence as impermanence, stress as stress, not self as not self, unattractive as unattractive. Having developed right view, they abandon ignorance and bring to cessation all confusion, all deluded thinking, all stress and suffering. So here we see that the cessation of fabrications comes through awakened right view. We know that right view is developed through understanding of the Four Noble Truths and the practice of the Eightfold Path. By taking true refuge in the Buddha, Dhamma, and the Sangha, we are accepting life as it occurs, without needing it to be different, understanding where we are and what we can and can't do about it. By remaining mindful of the breath in the body, thoughts, feelings, and the quality of our minds, we become more aware of our habitual clinging to wrong views of self and gain greater clarity. Again, another reference to right view. So in gaining greater clarity, being mindful of the four foundations of mindfulness, upon contact, we know this is not me. Upon contact with sense phenomena, upon contact with thought, upon contact with feeling, this is not me, this is not mine, this is not who I am. When we know that, when we're sensitive to that, the veil of ignorance is lifted, the pain chain is broken, one has developed right view. Here we know unbinding, and we are calm. Short sutta. We can go around the room if anyone has questions or comments. Mary, let's start with you.
It's as you hear it and as you've described it and illuminated and unpacked it, it just makes so much sense. It's like having a flashlight and shining it on the things that you're doing that are causing your suffering. There's so much in here, but it just makes sense as you listen to it. I guess I can't explain it back clearly, but I thought it was very well done. And it's something that I know I can take off the cushion with me. Good. As I go and navigate other parts of my life. I mean, maybe like some people, or maybe some people can relate, that when we first start doing this, we recognize wrong speech, all these things, we have direct experiences quite frequently. And then as you really get into this, you really have to deal with all the wrong views in your head, all the fabrications, and you have to hold yourself accountable. And I think this sutta is very helpful for that kind of self-awareness when we're off the cushion. So yeah. Thank you, Matt. Great job.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's the self-awareness that you mentioned, and particularly off the cushion. That's, when we can, like I said earlier, knowing impermanence as impermanence, knowing stress as stress, that's living life as it occurs. When we understand that, we're in the world as it's occurring. And when we understand that, which includes understanding the First Noble Truth, we understand stress. Therefore, we are sensitive to unbinding from stress. So our life off the cushion as it occurs is calm.
Outstanding, Matt. Thank you so much. It was a great presentation of the Vipallasa Sutta. The conclusion of this sutta, and it's mentioned twice. The Buddha concludes the sutta twice within the sutta. Knowing impermanence as impermanence, stress is stress, not self is not self, and unattractive as unattractive, speaks directly to the prevailing spiritual practices of the Buddha's time and our time. In other words, knowing impermanence as or trying to use a certain practice, say worship of Avalokiteshvara, as the resolution for my lack of understanding, is knowing impermanence as Avalokiteshvara.
Yeah.
Substituting a chant for Buddhist practice is knowing stress not as stress, but knowing stress as a chant. And this is really what the Buddha is referring to here. It's the substitutions that we make for the understanding that we're seeking. And it's the essence of fabrications, isn't it? To know stress as a chant rather than to know stress as the Buddha teaches, or to know anatta, the not self characteristic, as the substitute, the common substitute is nothingness or emptiness, isn't it? And so that is knowing not self as emptiness. And it simply is such a contradiction to the reality that you brought out. You really unpacked it in a beautiful way. So thank you, Matt.
Thank you, John. Yeah, I think that was really well said, John, in that this idea is of substitutions. And we can all look into our own lives and see where we substitute the reality of what's occurring with what we want or what we don't want. And ultimately that's fabricated. That's a fabrication and only leads to more confusion.
Hey, Matt.
So thank you, John. David.
Yes,
yeah.
And the most significant aspect of that is as it applies to authentic or inauthentic or ignoble or noble or ignoble searches. Again, the Buddha's concern is that we're actually practicing the Dhamma. So fabrications that might arise over Saturday night's chariot races are interesting, but they don't really relate to the Dhamma. It's my fabrication about what I'm substituting for reality that needs to be the focus of my Dhamma practice. Because you can fabricate anything, but what's most significant is me fabricating something that alters the Dhamma in a way that makes it accessible or useful to me, but where I don't have to actually change a fabrication. So that's not knowing that. Such a powerful sutta, isn't it?
It's really, really sharp. Really sharp. David, did you have something?
Yeah, just the reference to the wise being confused. Is that what you're talking about with the accommodations?
Let's see.
It was right after the line with referencing the wise, and then
the wise will listen and regain their senses.
Yes. Is that referencing
Yes.
losing that
Yes.
focus and accommodating and
Exactly.
okay.
When the Buddha is referring to the wise, he's always referring to people that know the authentic Dhamma.
And that's that's also each of us when we fall off the path in life sometimes.
Yeah.
And lose our senses through the stress that's inherent in the world. So this is regaining our senses through the teachings of the Buddha, the Dhamma, is what that refers to. Thank you, David.
He knows it. Matt, why don't you see if Matt wants to say hello?
Matt H, are you there? You are there, but
I'll unmute his mic. Oh no, he did it. Hello, Matt H.
Hi. I'm just enjoying listening and learning.
I couldn't hear that.
he just said he's enjoying listening and he appreciates it.
Oh, good. Well, I'm glad you joined us tonight. Welcome to our Sangha.
Thank you.
Be careful, though, because once you're in, you can't get out.
Banished to the waiting room. Jane.
I wasn't surprised that you did that very well, because you've been sharing that with me for quite a while now. I came to you and I was super stressed, and I still remember the first time you told me that, well, that's the first noble truth that exists. And it's like, I had no idea what a noble truth was, or I don't know. Through your generous spirit, I mean, you shared that with me. And, well, you brought me and you led me to the Dhamma. I love you. Thank you.
Teacher Ram.
Yeah, a nice little sutta here. It's beautiful clarity in it. A lot of the short suttas can be a little hard to get into, but this one was very clear, laid out very logically, and you followed all the lines out. I mean, this sutta sits in the spider web of the Dhamma. All the lines go out to clearly to places that we know, and you tied it right back. Thank you.
Thank you. Trevor.
Thank you so much, Matt. Beautiful sutta, beautiful teaching. Appreciate your clarity on this one. I'm with Ram. I really loved how you drew connections with dependent origination and clinging aggregates. Yeah, this was a very, very helpful teaching. So sincere thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Holmes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, all right. I get confused on the mute and the unmute button. So, well, thank you.
Welcome.
I'm still trying to sort a lot of this stuff out.
I hope that helped.
Kind of the question I may have that you might want to address is that I think my biggest problem is just distraction of all kinds. It's hard for me to get myself quiet enough to even stop to remember to breathe.
Yeah.
And so I don't know what you can do with that, but I'd be interested to hear something.
Well, that's a good question. When we know stress as stress, when we know impermanence as impermanence, we know that thoughts are arising, feelings are arising and passing away on their own all day long. You think a million different things during the day. You don't remember every single thing that you thought. You feel a million different ways during the day. You don't remember every single way that you felt. That's because the nature of thoughts and feelings are impermanent. They're arising and passing away on their own all day long. So when thoughts or feelings come up that are distracting, you don't have to do anything to get rid of them. They're impermanent. They'll come and go on their own. So part of what you start to notice when you develop concentration through jhana meditation is how much time you spend trying to get rid of thoughts or feelings or emotions or sensations that are uncomfortable or distracting.
Yeah.
And once you start to develop the Dhamma in this way, you start to get better and better at coming back to the sensation of breathing in your body. When a thought comes up or a feeling comes up or a sensation comes up or an emotion comes up that's distracting. And like the Buddha had said in here and referenced in other suttas, when we become distracted by fabrications, we come back to the sensation of breathing in the body and say to ourselves, this is not me, this is not mine, this is not who I am. So right away, we're sensitive to unbinding. We're unbinding from the stress of that distraction because we know it's impermanent. We know that it's stress. And we know that it's not who we are. So I hope that helps, Josh.
Can I say a second?
Sure.
I'm an expert at this. I've been on a first name basis with my distractions for many decades. And the secret is you keep going. You sit down on your cushion and you do jhana. And you get distracted and you come back from the distractions. And as Matt told me, even if you do it once in a meditation, it's a good meditation. That's all there is to it.
Ram,
Thank you, Ram.
I'm really impressed that you remember that. That was a long time ago.
Thank you, Matthew. That was helpful.
Good. Thank you.
Great question, Josh.
Becky, I miss you.
I miss you too. And that was, first of all, I just want to echo Mary and echo Ram and echo Trevor, because this was a short and sweet sutta that was just so precise, so clear. And like Kevin said, I think it was Kevin or whoever, you tied it all up, you brought it all together. But the thing I really want to thank you for is that you did for me what you just tried to do for Joshua when I first came to you. And that is amazingly helpful to realize that all of those thoughts and distractions that you're having all through the day, you don't have to deal with them. They will just go away on their own. And you just have to keep meditating to gain the concentration to recognize that as you're making contact and going through your day. It sounds simple, but it's not easy.
Thank you, Becky.
Thank
Well
you.
said.
Thank you, Matt. That was very good. Thank you. I really enjoyed it.
Jen.
I love you, man. It literally, like, I can remember where I was, almost what I was wearing the first time that you said to me what you said to Josh tonight. And I mean, it has played over in my head for years and years and years. And it fell on me the same way tonight that it fell on me at the time that you first said it. and it reminds me of something that I wanted to say when I first started listening to everybody's comments, which was, you spoon feed the Dhamma like medicine. You give people the spoonful that they need at that moment of time. And that is exactly what you're talking about in this sutta, of being the light in the world. And what hit me, what struck me tonight was just knowing anatta as anatta is, I mean, I know it. I know not self as not self, but boy, I ignore it a lot because I want to be distracted. And that relates to what Mary said, that really you just have to be accountable. And that was the spoonful that I needed to hear tonight. So thank you.
Thank you. Awesome. Mike.
Hi, Matt. How are you?
Good, my friend. How you doing?
I love your presentation.
Thank you.
I don't want to try to unravel anything because I'm afraid I'll confuse the whole room after you've done such a great job. So I just want to say thank you for you so eloquently leading from one understanding of impermanence and of the not self and to the next, and giving us a clear understanding of what's needed to reach right view or to attain right view, which obviously from that perspective unfolds a lot of what we're trying to learn with the Dhamma. So I do greatly appreciate for your clarity and your ability to interpret this and present it. Thank you so much. I appreciate it so much.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank
Julia.
you, Matt.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much for the teaching. It was very, very eloquently put,
It really was.
I have nothing else to add. It was just very good to listen, to hear you teach your manner of teaching.
You're going to go places in the world of the Buddha, I'll tell you right now. All these teachers are.
Thank you, guys.
All the teaching was beautiful. Thank you.
We contenders.
Teacher Kevin.
Yeah, I just want to thank you for the tremendous insight and Vipassana that you provided there to bring it back to where the Dhamma resides and where this all resolves. And that's in our human life, in our human mind, and our human body. And that's letting life occur as life occurs. And I also would agree with Jen and others that you do have a sort of Moggallana teaching style, the way you're able to serve the medicine, appropriate time, the appropriate dosages. And as another fellow teacher of yours, I could take great wisdom from that. And so I appreciate that was said, and thank you.
Thank you, brother. Karen.
Still have the screen.
Okay, unmuted myself. Thank you so much, Matt. Just
You're welcome.
awesome.
Thank you.
I really, really look forward to returning to these teachings. So, John, these are going to be available. You've recorded all of this?
Yep, they'll be up early next week, all of them.
Okay, fabulous. Because I was distracted during your talk because a lot of reasons, but mainly my kitty on my lap. But I will go back and listen again. But love, love, love hearing all of you guys. Such a treat to be on this retreat this weekend. Thank you.
Glad you're here, Karen.
Thank you.
David.
Hello, Matt.
Hey, brother.
You want your teachers to be wise and respectful of the subject and patient and stewards of what we have here, the Sangha and what John's created. And that's what I'm taking away with this weekend retreat. And I look forward to tomorrow's Ram's teaching. But there's a comfort knowing that this will continue. So thank you.
Thank you, my friend. John?
Well, I was just thinking, you know, I'm still probably going to teach once in a while. So I noticed that everybody's looking forward to Ram tomorrow.
Oh, boy.
But I might actually teach for a few minutes too, you know. Honestly, I'm sitting here as stunned as an old man can get. And looking forward to our fourth teacher tomorrow. But listening to Jen, Kevin, and Matt today, I can't help but think of one when I first started teaching meditation, and then a few years later when Matt and I met up and decided that we wanted to do this, you know, establish these teachings in Frenchtown and see what would happen to them. And this is really amazing, you know, that there's, I don't know how many authentic, I don't know how many teachers there are that are teaching just what the Buddha taught. I don't think there's many, and I don't know of any, except the ones that are here. And it's just incredible when you think about what has developed here, and the level of teaching. Yeah, I mean, you got to know the Dhamma to teach it, and you all know the Dhamma, and the way you've expressed it is just remarkable. You know, you're teaching an old dog some new tricks about this too, and boy, I can't say anything more but that. So,
thank you, my friend. Thank you all. Really, this, you know, the Buddha, the three jewels are what we're doing. You know, that's what we're doing. And it's really an honor to hold the three jewels with all of you. And it's been years now, which is really special. So
it's remarkable how much we've all grown in the.
Yeah, it really is.
You know, it's not conceptual to any of you, but it's especially to our teachers. There's no conceptual or fabricated teaching here. It's all from the heart. That's just remarkable. I've sat with some of the world's foremost Buddhist teachers, and nobody can teach it like you guys. Really. Well, I'm going to stop saying that. They're going to want to raise, and no raises during COVID-19. So.
Got any toilet paper?
What's the toilet? Yeah, I'll tell you. I got some toilet paper from BJ, so I'll pay in rolls of toilet paper.
I'll take some chocolates from Ram.
Oh, yeah.
Anita.
We can.
Matt, are you finished?
Yes.
Good. I don't mean good. So we always have a little Saturday night social. We're not going to have it tonight because Anita didn't distribute chocolates to all of us. But the one question I ask always is, what's one thing that you learned this weekend that you didn't know? Something you learned about the Dhamma. So let's go around the room briefly, and I just like to hear what you have to say about that. Mary.
Well, I guess I'm going to look at what we just talked about. I don't think it's always that in the beginning you're learning